If you're helping your student apply for scholarships, let's just say it like it is, it can be overwhelming. And sometimes it might feel like your student is just sending essays into a black hole. But the truth is that there are strategic changes that families can make that can make a huge difference, that are real, practical steps that can actually help your student win scholarship money. So today I want to break down just the best scholarship tips out there that really can help a student stand out, avoid common mistakes, and finally receive those congratulations emails or letters instead of silence. Now make sure you hit subscribe because every week we have a new strategy for you and your family to work towards a debt-free degree. But this week, I'm excited to cover my favorite topic, and that is scholarships. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System, where we help families that are overwhelmed by the cost of college do exactly this: secure scholarships so that they can help their student graduate with as little student loans as possible. In fact, we've helped families secure over $16 million to date, and we're not stopping there. But as you could imagine, between not just the wins that our families have received, but also the thousands and thousands of applications we've reviewed as an organization that gives scholarships as well, we have seen everything from the best applications ever that have won six figures and fully paid for undergrad to the ones that really need a lot of work. And I mean that in a loving way. So I've got a lot to share with you today, and I can't wait to dive in. Now, just a quick note, this is for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. We're not familiar with the international scholarship process. Okay, now the first tip might feel a little obvious. However, I want to explain why this is so important, and that is to start early and stay consistent. Now, if you're listening to this and the ship has already sailed in your mind, don't worry, I've got tips for you too. But one of the challenges of waiting until senior year to start this process is there is so much going on. And there are scholarships that exist for students of all ages, even middle school, early high school years. The earlier your student starts, the easier it becomes to build strong applications, collect recommendation letters, fine-tune those essays, and it'll actually make the application process for admissions 10 times easier. So try to set a routine around this if you can, even if your student is very young, maybe one application a week, because those can add up, but also those reps of doing this work will pay off in the long run. Now, that said, I do want to say that it is also never too late. And I explain this more in my free webinar where I cover my steps to securing scholarships. So if you want that, you go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free webinar. I'll explain even more detail about timing and what to do if you are down to the wire, as well as where to find legitimate scholarships. Again, you can go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free webinar, or you can open up that video in a new tab and check it out after this one. Which leads me into tip 2, and that is all about targeting the right scholarships, which is what that free training is all about. It's not about applying to every single one that we come across or the big popular ones that everyone tells us about. It's about applying to the right ones for our students. So you want to show them this one's yes, this one's no. And encouraging them to focus on their interests, their backgrounds, their experiences can help them focus on the ones that they actually have a higher chance of winning. I love this part of the process for parents. It is a great way that you can jump in and do it with them without overstepping, without actually risking their chances of winning. Try to think of scholarships that might tie to a field of study, a hobby, volunteer work they do, a unique personal story. Also, of course, local scholarships are gold. They often have fewer applicants, which increases your students' chances of winning. And again, I cover all of that in that free webinar, which we'll link to in the description as well. All right, tip number 3 is personalizing every essay. So this one is critical. Scholarship reviewers, they know when a student just copies and pastes a general essay and doesn't actually look at the prompt. Have your student take time to tailor each application, each essay they submit. If they can, they could possibly even mention the organization's name, refer to their mission, and show why their scholarship connects to your students' goals. Personalization makes the difference between blending in and standing out. And we've got to keep this in mind, especially if there's thousands of applicants to that scholarship. And going off of that, tip number 4 is telling a story. So we don't want to just list accolades, list accomplishments, run through our resume. We want your student to really show who they are, the student behind the GPA and the activities list. Committees will remember when students not only share who they really are, but do it through story that reveals their character, their growth, their resilience. So for example, instead of saying, I volunteered at a food bank, your student could write, volunteering every Saturday at X, Y, and Z, I came across a young girl named Betsy. And every time I saw her, she reminded me what I was doing, right? And so they're going to remember, oh, right, this is the one who wrote about Betsy. That is what sticks. I still remember essays from years and years ago from when giving out scholarships to this day because I remember their story. We talk a ton about this in the scholarship system course. We have that linked below as well. And we also have a essay tips video about do's and don'ts. So you can click on that here and check that out after this. We will also link to the playlist below in the description. Okay, tip number 5 is to proofread everything. This is also a great place that parents can be involved. So it sounds basic, it sounds obvious, but you would be amazed, again, having read through thousands and thousands of applications at how many submit theirs either with errors or formatting issues, or maybe when they uploaded, they didn't have it in the right file source, or even worse, I would say here, this is not necessarily grammatical proofreading, but they don't answer the question that was asked. So this is something that you as parents can check as well. So this is all part of the proofreading process. For those of you that are members in the scholarship system, check out our scholarship assessor. It is a checklist for you all that we created that you do not want your student to submit a single scholarship application without going through that, okay? So literally you want to print it out and just each time that we're submitting a scholarship, go through the bullet list and make sure we follow that, because one of the things in there is, did we answer the question at hand? A great free tool, by the way, for this, just the proofreading in general, is Grammarly. I don't have any affiliation, but it's a great start to get through a lot of the quick errors that we miss. Tip number 6 kind of builds on knowing the right ones to apply for, but it's applying to, we'll say, underrated or ignored scholarships. Do not overlook the $500, $1,000 scholarships for your students. I know you want your child to go ahead and win $10,000 in one win. Unfortunately, everyone else thinks the same way. But I will tell you, I got 6 figures in scholarships, graduated completely debt-free, and my largest one was $4,000 a year. And it was split $2,000 per semester. But I worked my way to a free ride with little scholarships that added up. And that is how most of our families in the scholarship system get to their free ride. These are the smaller dollar ones. They are less competitive. They're easier to win. They're lower hanging fruit. And again, in that free training, I talk about that a lot more in detail. The next one I want to say is about staying organized. So when it comes to staying organized, we've got to figure out what works for your family. So we have actually a free app. If you go to the scholarshipsystem.com/app, APP, we have an app and Chrome extension that connect to each other. You as a parent, you can save them from your browser. They sync with the app on your phone and your student's phone. You can even label scholarships by different children. So we built that because we realized there really wasn't a great way to stay organized. However, if you are a spreadsheet person, that works. If you're a paper person, that kind of works. The thing is, I really want some kind of electronic reminder because we often build an amazing list and we forget about it. Missing a deadline is the biggest reason students don't get money because then they just don't apply. But also by being organized, we can have a plan of attack. We can know, okay, this one's due then. We can get ahead of it rather than submitting something last minute. It's just not going to compete well. A lot of people spend most of their time on finding the scholarships and then rush through the applications and then wonder why their student isn't winning any money. You need to make sure that your student is giving it the proper attention and time that it needs. All right, and then tip number 8 is just to keep on applying. Scholarships are not just for seniors in high school. We can start earlier in high school, like I mentioned earlier. We can also continue applying all throughout college. That's where I talked about those of you that have students that are already there or it's the end of senior year, whatever the timing is. It is never too late. For some students, they can treat this like a job. Every week with their family, They sit down for an hour or two and knock out some applications. Me, I was a batcher. I rather knock out 10 applications in one winter break or spring break. So personally, I was a batcher, but some people like that consistent meeting time. And actually, I will say most of our families in the scholarship system, they do something we call Scholarship Sundays, where they dedicate a certain time to do this. But that ongoing application process, especially once we get wins, then we can tweak and reuse essays, and it takes a fraction of the time. So get your student not only applying, but push them to keep on applying all the way until they graduate from college. So that said, winning scholarships, it is not based on luck. And actually, if it is, then you definitely did not attend that webinar, because I talk about that. It is strategy. There are things that we can do in order to turn the dial in our favor, as I tell our families. Things that we can do to give us an edge among the competition. So I just gave you 8 very quick tips, but these are critical if you want your student to bring in money to pay for college. The more intentional that you and your student are throughout the scholarship process, the higher chance of them getting money and the less applications they will have to do in the long run. This is how families can make college affordable. Just like myself, I slowly chipped away at the bill with smaller dollar scholarships that added up. All right, if you found this helpful, give me a thumbs up and don't forget to hit subscribe. I will see you in next week's video.